श्रीवासरङ्गपरकालमुनित्रयाप्तलक्ष्मात्मरक्षणैतिद्युगागमान्तम् आचार्यभक्तिपरिपूतमनर्गशीलं गोपालदेशिकमुनिं गुरुमाश्रयामः। पराशरमुनिं वन्दे गतपौर्वाण्यक्रियं मैत्रेयपरिवप्रच्छ प्रणिपद्याभिवाद्य च. So, sage Maitreya has been asking questions and sage Parasara has been answering, and we get to enjoy the Vishnu Puranam. So we saw that sage Parasara talked about the Srishti, talked about the creation, and he also mentioned about the Charitram, Prahlada Charitram. We talked about Varaha Puranam. Then he mentioned about the Sharira Atma Bhavam, how the Perumal has manifested into the world, into our beings, into everything, in and out, inside and outside of everything. So, and then he talked about the Manu Amsham, Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu has got two sons, Uttanapadan and Priyavratan. And Uttanapadan, we have seen about Uttanapadan, and Uttanapadan's son was Angan, his son Venan, and Venan's son was Dhruva, Dhruva Charitram. We heard about the wonderful divine story of Dhruva and how Dhruva was contemplating doing the meditation, tapas, and was blessed with a vision of Vishnu. How he was blessed to be the pole star, the Dhruva Nakshatram. And Dhruvan, after Dhruvan, we heard about the Prithu Chakravarti. From then Prithvi comes. So now sage Maitreya asked, you kept talking about one son, which is Uttanapadan. What about the other son, Priyavratan? And what about his children? So Priyavratan is said to have created the 7 Dvipams and the oceans. So Priyavratan had 10 sons. The sons were called Agnitran, Agnibahu, Vapushpan, Dyutiman, Medha, Medaditi, Bhavyan, Savanan, Putran, Jyotishman. Like that, he had 10 sons. And he had 7 Dvipams. Dvipams are different Dvipams, oceans. So sage Parasara narrates about the different Dvipams, the origin of rivers, different worlds like Swargalokam, Bhuvarlokam, etc. And so Priyavratan has got 10 sons, and the first 3 sons, they said they are interested in yoga, meditation, contemplation, tapas. So they don't want any kingdom, they don't want any property. So very simple. At least he had 7 Dvipams. So he had 7 sons. 3 of them out of 10, 3 did not want any kingdom. So 7 sons, 7 Dvipams. So he gave each one 1 Dvipam. So the first son, Agnitran, got Jambudvipam. When we take a sankalpam, we say Jambudvipe, Bharata Varsha, Bharata Kante, Shahapte, Mero, Dachine Parsve, all that we mentioned. So this Jambudvipam is about 100,000 yojanas is the diameter of the Dvipam. So that 100,000 is equal to 800,000 miles approximately. And it is surrounded by the oceans. And then we have the other second Dvipam, which is 200,000 yojanas. And the third Dvipam is 400,000 yojanas. Like that, each one is so vast and big. So Agnitran had this Agnitran, who was blessed with Jambudvipam, he split that into 9 varshas, called countries. So Agnitran had 9 sons. So he had one country to each of his son. So Agnitran's son was Nabi, who obtained Sri Narayanan himself as his son, and he named his son as Rishabhan. And after ruling the kingdom for many years, this Rishabhan handed over the kingdom to Bharat, the Bharatan, his son Bharatan. And the Rishabhan went as an ascetic sannyasi to the forest to be contemplating and meditating. So this Bharatan got this Bharata Varsha, which is one of the 9 Varshas handed over from Agnitran to his sons. So Bharatan had this Varsham, and hence it is called Bharata Varsham. So Jambudvipe, Bharata Varshe, like that, Meroho Dakshine passed away, the south of Meru mountain. So there are 3 Bharatas in our Sanatana Dharma. One is this Rishabhadeva's son, who is called Bharata, and he is the Adi Bharata, and he is the first person to be named as Bharata, and hence India is named as Bharata Varsham after Adi Bharata. Then there was one more Bharata called, who is the son of Dushyant and Shakuntala. King Dushyant and Shakuntala son was called Bharatan. Of course, we know the story, because Shakuntala, King Dushyant met with Shakuntala and he forgot all that. And the third one, Bharata, was Lord Sri Ramachandra Murthy's younger brother, Bharatan. So the one who is Adi Bharatan, who is the son of Rishabhadeva, who was blessed with this Bharata Varsham, after ruling for many years, this Bharatan, King Bharatan, retired to the forest, and he handed over to his son probably and went to the forest. He set up a beautiful ashram on the banks of the river in Shalagrama Divyadesam, near the ashram of Pulastya Maharishi. So King Bharata became a recluse, because each one of us cannot continue working until the last breath, until we fall dead. One day we have to hang the shoes, the boots, and then look inward. At least try to have an Atma Vicharam. No point in running behind the materials and running amok behind the sensual pursuits. So Bharata started to meditate upon the Lord Vishnu. He performed the Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is deemed to be uninterrupted, continuous contemplation, dhyanam of the Lord without any interruption. And like the oil, when you pour the oil from one container to the other container, it is so dense that it will flow like a pipe, it will flow like a crystal clear tube. Whereas if you flow water, it will splash everywhere. There will be lot of sprinkles, water sprinkles on the surrounding, whereas the oil would never do that. Similarly, like the flow of oil, tila dailavat, so like that the tailam which is pouring, the Bhakti Yoga needs to be contemplated. So one needs to have a continuous uninterrupted contemplation of the Lord in the cavity of their heart while doing the Bhakti Yoga, which is all described so beautifully by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So our Bharata was contemplating, reciting the slokam Yajñesa Achyuta Govinda Madhavananta Keshava Krishna Vishnu Rishikesha Vasudeva Namostute. Yajñesa Achyuta Govinda Madhavananta Keshava, Krishna Vishnu Rishikesha, Vasudeva Namostute. Vishnu Puranam, 2nd chapter, 13th Adhyayam, 9th Sloka. This he used to recite every moment, every day, without any interruption. So he was enjoying the blissful darshan in the cavity of his heart, the Mahavishnu with Shankha Chakra, with the Pitambaram, with the golden cloth, and he was enjoying the darshan. Suddenly he heard a noise one day. There was some sound of an animal near the river. He found a pregnant deer near the river, but the deer heard very nearby a lion roaring. The lion saw the deer. Now the deer happened to see the lion. The lion was roaring, and so the deer was scared. It was so much shivering in fright. So it tried to jump across the river to the other shore. And in the fear, in that moment, when it jumped, it delivered the cub, the kuti, man kuti, the fawn. It delivered a fawn. The mother deer went to the other side of the shore. It abandoned the fawn and it ran away. Our Bharatan, King Bharata, who is now a recluse, took pity on the little one, the baby deer, the fawn, and he raised it in his hand and he started feeding the little deer. He soon became very attached to the deer. There's nothing wrong in being helpful. The King Bharata saved the young deer abandoned by its mother, which is good. We have to be humanitarian. We have to be helpful. So he did the right thing by saving the baby deer, but he made a mistake of becoming attached to the deer, baby deer. Why did he come to the forest? To do the tapas, to cut off the emotional ties, to cut off the ties with even his children. But now he fell into the trap, emotional trap, when he fell in love with the baby deer. So the baby deer was so sweet, so cute, so lively and so beautiful. So our king got so much lured, attracted by the deer. He spent all his waking hours finding the food, the green grass and the leaves, the fruits for the deer. He would not let any moment away from his eyesight that baby deer. Wherever it was playing, he used to look at it so that it is not caught by the animal or the wild beast, because they might kill the baby deer. So even if he does not see the deer for a few seconds, because the deer may go somewhere behind the bush, behind the tree, he begins to worry about it. He thought about the welfare of the deer continuously. He forgot the Lord, the Vishnu, why he came, the contemplation, just like me, thinking always about something or somebody else, but not the Perumal. So he thought about the welfare of the deer continuously, and in few moments, few days, few months, few years, even he was on his deathbed. There also he died thinking about the deer. So he died thinking about the deer. So he took birth as a deer in his next life. This is surprising. Will we be like that? If we die thinking about something, will we be born like that? What is it that our thinking, that we are thinking we will become like that? Yes, Lord Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, whatever object one thinks of at the time one leaves the body, that he will attain. He or she will attain. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tam yevaiti kaunteya sada tat bhava bhavitaha. Sada tat bhava bhavitaha. So, whatever that one thinks of at the dying moment, at the last moment, antima smriti, remembering whatever at the dying moment, at the last moment, we become that. So, we think that, oh, it is that simple. Suppose I think of Lord Vishnu or Narayana or Rama or Krishna at the time of my death. So I reach him, I attain him, right? So it is as simple as that. So why do I have to recite Vishnu Sahasranamam every day? Why do I have to study all the scriptures, learn Vedas, learn stotrams? No point. I'll enjoy life. While I die, I think of Krishna and attain him. Very simple. But it's not so simple, my dear, because whatever that we think, whatever that we have been thinking throughout life, we become that even at the last moment. And there is a story called Ajamilan. You must have heard. Ajamilan was a heavy papi, Maha papi, and he did all wrong things, and he had so many children. He used to drink, he used to gamble, he used to be with several people, and then he had so many children. But he named his last child as Narayana, and he was so fond of his last baby. At the last moment, when he was about to die, he wanted to see his last son. So he called him, Narayana, Narayana, Gyava, I want to see you before I die. And he died. So when Yamaduta came to take him to Narakalokam, Vishnu Duta came and stopped Yamadutas. You cannot take him. He belongs to us because he recited Narayana at the time of his death. So, very simple. So now we can name our child as the God's name and call Keshava, Madhava, Govinda, and thereby we also can escape like our Ajamilan did, right? But it's not so simple also, because when you and I do that, at the time of our death, we would not say, hey Keshava, come here. We will say, where is my son? I want to see him. Where is my grandson? I want to see him. On the kadasi payana koopudu, please call the last baby. But we would not tell the name, or we would be completely dumb in coma stage, that we would not do anything. We would not know anything. So for everything, we need to be blessed by Lord to think of him. So we need to continuously think of him, so that we think of him at the last moment. So this is Ramanuja also mentioned the story of Adi Bharata as an example. Adi Bharata, the Bharata was a great yogi, but he grew attached to the deer late in life, and he breathed his last. He thought only of the deer and was reborn as a deer in the next life. So we gather that the final recollection of Perumal at the time of death is capable only by the Bhakti Yogis, only by the highest of yogis. For us, it's completely difficult. All that we remember is, if we do not know anything, if we cannot visualize him, how can you remember him? Periyalvar, one of the Alvar saints, says, Tuppudayare adaivadellam shorvidat tunayar endre ஒப்பிலேன் ஆகிலும் நின்னடைந்தேன் ஆனைக்கு நீ அருள் செய்தவையால் எய்ப்பு என்னை வந்து நலியும் போது அங்கு ஏதும் நான் உன்னை நினைக்க மாட்டேன் அப்போதைக்கு இப்போதே சொல்லி வைத்தேன் அரங்கத்தரவணை பள்ளியானே. When I in the last moment, when I am going to die, I would not be able to think of anything. I would not be able to even contemplate. I would not be able to even think. I cannot even walk and pass my natural calls. I cannot even see. I cannot even hear. So, how would I be able to utter your name? Hence, Lord, I am telling your name right now. Mark it, record it. This is on behalf of that last moment. Periyalvar says, அப்போதைக்கு இப்போதே சொல்லி வைத்தேன். Even Kulasekara Alvar mentions the same thing. Prana prayana samaye kapavada pittai kantavarodana vidau smaranam kutaste. When my throat is choked with phlegm, pittam, vadam, shali, when all these things attack me at the final moment, I would not be able to think of you. How will I be able to remember you? Right now I am entering into your lotus feet. Consider this as that. So, very simple. The yogi is obviously different from this. He can visualize the Lord. To such a yogi, remembering the Lord during final moment will require very less effort compared to us non-yogis. So, if final recollection is a prerequisite for attaining Perumal, none of us would be able to attain in any of our lives, because it is just simply not possible. So what's the solution? The solution is, Perumal himself says, I told you when we talked about Varaha Puranam, Lord Varaha mentions to Bhumi Pirati, he says, if anybody is in their good sense, is in their sattva gunam, in their pure sense, when their senses are working well, when their sattva gunam is in ascension, when it is on the rise, all that they need to do is to think of me, is to offer flowers at my feet, is to praise me, is to fold hands, is to perform Sharanagati at my feet. He says, if one does that, Aham smarami madbhaktam nayami paramam gatim, I would be able to remember them when they are lying, because kashta pashana sannibham, when they are lying like a log of wood in a coma stage, passing all the urine and motion, everything on the bed, with a stink, with a smell, and even the relatives, the darling spouse, the dear children, the relatives, they don't want to even come into the bedroom. They appoint some nurse to clean us. They would not come near because of the stink that we create. But our Lord is so compassionate and dayalu, paramadayalu, karunanidhi. So He comes near us. He comes inside us. He takes our soul. He says, Aham smarami madbhaktam nayami paramam gatim. I would take my darling devotee to my abode by myself. I would remember. Aham smarami. I will remember. And if you want the final moments, pray to Him right now so that He will let you remember. Even if you are in coma, you can visualize Him inside you. You can visualize Him with the Sankha Chakram or with whatever form that He would be blessing you with the vision. So it was only to make the final moments sweeter, He would be making Himself visible. So the Lord need not expect that you would have to remember Him. He would do on His own accord. He will manifest Himself in the mind of a Sharanagatan, the Prapannan, the one who performed Sharanagati, without any need of effort in the Sharanagatan's part. Kevalam madiyeva dayaya, purely out of my grace, the Lord says in Sharanagati Gadyam to Ramanuja. So those of us who have performed Sharanagati, who would do Sharanagati at the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sriman Narayana, need not worry about how we will be able to remember Him in our final thoughts. He Himself will show Himself to us at that time and guide us along the shining path to moksha. moksha samrajyam. So, our coming back to Adi Bharata, he took the birth of a deer in his final next life. So, the last memory of a person decides the next birth which would follow death. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, the verse sloka 5, Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati cha madbhavam yati nastyatra samshayaha. He said the person who remembers Perumal at the time of death and quits his or her body while remembering Perumal alone, at once he attains the moksha, mukti. Of this there is no doubt, Krishna says. Of course, he says in the next verse, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tam yevaiti kaunteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Of course, we saw Varaha Puranam, Sthite manasi suswaste shariro satiyo naraha, dhatu samye sthite smarta vishwarupam samamajam, tatastam mriyamanantu kashtapashana sannibam, aham smarami madbhaktam nayami paramam gatim. I myself will remember that my Sharanagatan, my Prapannan, the one who surrendered to me, I would take care of him. I will take myself. Don't worry. So only those Bhakti Yogins who leave their last breath thinking about the Lord reach his divine feet. Whereas Antima Smriti, the final remembrance, is not required for people who perform Sharanagati. He would make himself available for us to be remembered. So it is because of his daya, with his Parama daya. He is such a Parama Upakarakan. So the Lord would remember them when it is time for them to leave their mortal coils. So King Bharata had led a very pious life. He had renounced his family. He had renounced his kingdom. He had renounced his wealth, his children, to lead a simple life in the forest to perform Bhakti Yoga. Doesn't it seem that the king was punished severely when he was made to take birth as a deer for a small mistake that he helped and he was attached to the deer? Is it not too much cruel? The narration about King Bharata shows that Bhakti Yogam, or spending time sincerely to learn Vedas, never fail. The king was made to take birth as a deer, but the Bhakti Yogam he performed as the King Bharata gave him the ability to recall his previous life, even when he was born as a deer in the next birth. So the king obtained a chance to rectify his mistake. The king Bharata, Adi Bharata, retained his memory about his past birth. The Bharatan remained detached from the herd as a deer. He did not become just like any other deer. He left the herd and he went to the same kshetram as a deer. And when he died as a deer, he left his mortal coil. Then he took birth as a Brahmin. He once again regained his memory about his past lives. Adi Bharata, the deer, and now the Brahmin. And hence he stayed detached from life. Even though he knew the Vedas very well, he could have even taught the verses to his father, but he refrained from repeating them to his father. His father tried to teach him. He felt that he had to avoid taking the path whereby he would become a great scholar, but that will lead to false ego. So he showed himself as a very simple, very normal person, even though he was a Paramajnani. There are many of us, even few scholars, even today, Vedantic scholars, who look very simple. When you see them, they would be in very simple, moderate clothes. They would be with such a humility, humble. They would talk to you as if they are very ordinary people, but they are extremely knowledgeable in Vedantam, in Nyaya Sastram, in Vyakaranam, in Tarkam. But they would look so simple that we would judge by their look that they are very ordinary people. Only when they have a 4 fingers, all the 4 fingers, rings and diamond and kadkan in the ears, with a chain, with a shawl, then we with slightly plump body, the Ganapati, then we would know that he is a scholar. If they are normal looking people, we misjudge that they are ordinary. Our person, our Jnani, Paramajnani, looked very simple, and of course people mistook him. More next week. Kavitarkika Simhaya Kalyana Gunashaline Srimate Venkateshaya Vedanta Gurave Namaha. Adiyen Dhanyosmi.